Hi and welcome back to RPMbassy. My name is John Taylor. Normally I'm here with my colleague Mark. He's not in this video. As you can see, I'm just going to be doing a review. And the review is for one of my favourite bands. If you've been watching my top 20, I also had an album from this band in here. And as you can see, I'm wearing the same t-shirt I did in the last lot of videos because this is more relevant for this particular review, because the review is for the brand new album from Depeche Mode and the album title Momento, Mori. I did do some research to make sure I pronounced that correctly, but we're going to be talking about Depeche Mode's new album Momento, Mori. Now this is the 15th studio album from Depeche Mode, and I'm going to talk about the artwork. I'm going to give you a quick review of what I thought of the tracks and then overall. It's the first album that's only got Martin and Dave on the album, and a good job they've done as well, I've got to say. It is a great album. I've spent the last week listening to it to make sure that I've got enough information for this kind of video and my true thoughts of this particular album. Obviously we had the untimely passing of Andy Fletcher, and all of a sudden they announced this new single and this new album, and a lot of people automatically thought that this was the last album that Andy Fletcher had anything to do with, but in fact it's not, because a lot of this album was written during lockdown by Martin, and he was also working with someone else on this, a guy called Richard Butler, so they wrote most of the songs already. So even before Andy Fletcher had passed, this album was already written. So he hadn't actually spent any time in the studio, and all of a sudden the photos of them, Dave and Martin in the studio, kind of working on this album, created a bit of a buzz. The first song came out, which I'm going to talk about in a second, and it was great, brilliant. It sort of gives you an idea of what the album's going to be about. As I said, a lot of people thought, I mean I did as well, I thought, oh, this is an album all about Andy Fletcher, but it's not. It's just a coincidence with the subject matter of this whole album, because it's quite a dark album. The artwork's quite dark as well, and the artwork again was done by Anton Corbijn. My apologies if I've said his surname wrong, but he's been working for quite some time now, I think like 20 years, maybe more, 30 years, who kind of does all the logos and all the artworks, photography, and he's really kind of almost made this cover. This is going to be quite an iconic cover, I think, because the wings, you automatically think of Andy Fletcher, you automatically think this album is all about him. It's not. It's quite easily, you'll see once you listen to the track, to think it is, but we'll have a little chat about the tracks later on. What I like about it as well is this is the vinyl version. This is the standard black vinyl version. You've got the nice kind of embossed, I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's nice and embossed and shiny. Now when I got this, I was pronouncing this wrong, because it's got Depeche Mode, and then Mode is back, and then Momento and Mori is back, and it took me like at least 5 minutes to twig what was going on. I just couldn't work out what was going on. But this is the front cover. I'm going to have a look at the CD later on, even though this is vinyl, and there's a reason why I want to show you the CD. But I love this artwork, and I expect this is to kind of, this is Martin and this is Dave. I'm not sure. This is me just speculating. But black vinyl still comes with a kind of gatefold. But we'll show you the back. I mean, that's incredible. Again, black and white, very dark, skull on a table. Not sure what it means. 2 tables. You can read a lot into this image. I'm not going to talk about it here. Everyone's going to have their own perspective of what this actually means. But it'd be quite interesting to see what you think this image means and why it's so prominent on the back cover. So if you do have a theory, just put it in the comments below, because I'd love to hear your theory, see if mine's correct. See if everyone's thinking the same way I'm thinking when it comes to this image. But when you open it up, you've got some nice kind of photography there. This is great, and it's obviously at the table that's on the back. You've got a nice little homage to Andy, you know, his own little space, his name, a little message from the boys. And this is a really nice touch. I was not expecting this. I expected all the kind of credits, but not this big. So this is really nice to see. And then we've got a photograph, obviously this one painted at the top, so this is quite unique as well. I love this. But with this album, and I hope this is a new craze, because I'm finding a lot of the new albums coming out now are giving away posters. And this is the same. This comes with a poster. All the versions of this album are standard on vinyl. It comes with a poster. Okay. I know there is coloured vinyl for this album. I just got the black because the colours are all the same. I think in Europe they've got a different coloured vinyl. I think there's 2 or 3 different coloured vinyls that you can buy for this album. So if you're a collector and just collect everything, there's quite a lot to collect from this, from the CD standard to the limited edition CD to the limited vinyl, coloured vinyl. So there's quite a lot to collect with this. I've just got this one here, but the poster is great. Such a good poster. And it kind of harks back to the 80s really, where a lot of the albums we used to get had posters with them. So I hope kids and teenagers can start putting posters on their wall now, because there's a lot more appearing with the vinyl. The inside as well, the two different vinyls. You've got song lyrics on one, the name of the album on the other side, credits, and some artwork. That's all you need. Poster, nice sleeve, couple of records, done. I do think they put a lot of thought into this album. And I think it's quite an important one for them, because this is the first album to showcase the duo. And I think they've done a really good job. This whole album, I've got to say, is quite incredible really, and it tells a story. When you do listen to this album, one thing I would say is listen to it in the order that is on the album. I'll go through the tracks in a second, but listen to it, it makes sense. There is a story going on, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through some of the tracks and what my thoughts are, and I have written them down, so excuse me for kind of pulling this piece of paper up, because there's like loads of little words on here. So the first track on the album was actually their second single they released. That was My Cosmos Is Mine. When this came out, after the first single, which we'll talk about in a second, I was initially disappointed. I think a lot of people were. I remember reading a lot of tweets and everything. People were a bit disappointed, but actually listening to it, it's a very, very, very clever track. And I'll tell you why is the instrumentation. It kind of revolves around this distorted, very industrial kind of feeling, like drum loop with this low kind of brooding bass line. A lot of distortion in the track. And then you got Dave's vocals. Now, as a producer, as I am, one of the things that's quite difficult is when you're using them kind of elements music-wise, is to get the vocal to sit right in the mix. Now, this album was produced by James Ford, who I believe was one half of Simon Mobile Disco, who I was a massive fan of. He's done an amazing job at having Dave's vocals sitting on their own, almost like they're separate, and it's blended it just right. You can hear every word, every nuance in his vocal, and that is an art form in itself, and he's managed to do it with this track. So listen to this track as a piece of art than just a track, because what he's done with this is incredible. So now I know why they released this as a single, the second single. The next track, Wagon Tongue, it's got a lovely little melody in it. It took me a few listens to kind of really understand it, but the little melody in this is great. And there's one thing I've always liked about Depeche Mode is they've got very simple melodies that kind of repeat, but they're earworms. You can't get them out of your head. I mean, think back at their really early tracks like The Meaning of Love or New Life, or even, that's the first ever tracks, but they always had this nice little melody. And it's the same with this one, and they've also got the best lyric on this album, on this track as well. And the lyric is, "Watch another angel die," which I think is such a real, when I first heard it, I thought, wow, that's incredible. It's almost like he wrote this knowing what was going to happen to his bandmate at some point. Because I'm sure they look at him as an angel. Andy Fletcher, rest in peace. So it's a good track, and I do like this track. The next one is Ghost Again, which was the first single. Now, this first single did blow my mind, because it kind of harped back to old Depeche Mode. It's got a great little melody in it. It's got the drums, the classic kind of 808 drums, the 4/4, and a little kind of almost like the arpeggiated bass line, the vocals and the harmonies, and the arrangement of the track. It just reminded me of the old Depeche Mode. It's not dark. I think it was a great single to kind of say, look, hey, this is off our new album that's coming out. There must have been a lot of pressure doing this album, because expectations would have been high. They've done a massive announcement, and all of a sudden they released that single. And they knew this was going to be break and make this album, is this first single, and I think they've done a really good job. Even though it's on the vinyl, I'd love to see this come out with some remixes, because there's so much in the track, and it's such a big track. You can't just release it and now forget about it. It's done. Do something with it, because it is an amazing track. There is Don't Say You Love Me, which To me, it sounds a bit of an album filler, if I can say that. I kind of lose track, my focusing on the track it doesn't really capture me, that track. Maybe a few more listens. Bear in mind, I have listened to it a good 10 to 15 times, and it's just one of the tracks that I can't really write about. It's not a bad track. It just doesn't talk to me. Is it in the right place with the album flow? Maybe, maybe not. I just need to listen to it again and really kind of understand that track. But have a listen. Let me know what you think of that track. Is it an album filler, or is it just me? If you can let me know again, comments below. Just fill them comments with what you think of the album and my kind of interpretation of the tracks. Then you've got things like My Favourite Stranger, a great track as well. You've got Soul With Me, all very kind of slow, brooding tracks. Then we come up to this Caroline's Monkey, Before We Drown, which is very dark, as you can imagine with this album, a nice little flow. But the next one that kind of grabbed my attention was People Are Good. I don't think the lyrics mean much, I'm not really sure. But there's a melody in this, and it really sounds like Kraftwerk, Showroom Dummies. But when I listen to it, I want that melody that's in it to finish. It's almost like it doesn't resolve itself, and I want it to finish. I said that's my only criticism with this track. It's that little melody. It doesn't sound quite finished. But as a track, it's an amazing track. But listen to Kraftwerk, Showroom Dummies, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Then you've got Always You. I've got to say, this is my favourite track on the album. It's the slowest track. I would say probably the slowest track on the album. But you've got that real sparse kind of drum beat with the 808 snare, really kind of tinny and cutting through, which I love. It's one of my favourite instruments. Then you've got, again, the bass line, and you can tell they're definitely using analog keyboards and synths in here. But there's also almost like live drum percussion in this as well, which I think they've kind of merged the two. They've done a really good job of that. And the vocal in this, it's got a lovely little melody in the vocal, and you can almost feel sorrow and pain from like Dave's vocals, and your heart almost misses a beat when listening to this track. It's such a lovely little track. Again, have a listen to it. Let me know what you think of this track. Is it your favourite track on the album? In fact, I'd like to know what is your favourite track from the album. What track on here can you listen to again and again? Because this is the one I have gone back to on its own without listening to the rest of the album. It's this one here. And then it's you got Never Let Me Go, which is a great track. And bearing in mind, when I'm saying listen to this track in the order that it comes in, because it starts off quite dark, there's delicate melodies, and there's all tracks about mortality, some quite powerful kind of lyrics in there, and then it finishes off with Speak to Me, and it's almost telling a story. Listen to it, you see exactly there's a story going on there. As a producer releasing records as well, we spend a long time in getting that track order right. So when people kind of download the album, listen to like track 5, tracks, you don't get the whole feeling of the album or the flow of the album. So on vinyl, you've got no choice but listen to it in this particular order, and it tells a story. And you know they spent a long time doing that, getting the order right. But overall, every track, my overall kind of feeling with the whole album, yes, successful album, really good album. I'm glad they've done it now. It's quite dark, which I expect from Depeche Mode. It kind of harks back to that very kind of dark era, and I think this is it, and I think they're doing a really good job as a twosome. But it sounds like a band in mourning, and I think it's another reason why I want to kind of listen to it and hold that album, because it does sound like a band in mourning. They can't share their feelings with you, and this is the way they can do it. So listen to this album, listen to all the tracks. Really good album. I think they've done a great job. And it's doing really well, which I'm really happy for Depeche Mode, because I think at the moment it's at number 2 in the UK charts, and I've got a little list of, like in the Spanish album charts is number 2, Swedish album charts is number 1, US Billboard it's at number 14, US rock albums at number 2, Austrian albums number 1. So it's smashing all the charts all over the world, and I'm so happy for Depeche Mode. It's well deserved, well deserved. But that is review for Depeche Mode, Momento, Mori. Okay? If you haven't heard it, check it out. See you in the next video, and don't forget to leave a comment. Thank you very much.